Hello, this is Father Hightower, and welcome to Vox SFX, the voice of St. Francis Xavier Parish in Missoula, Montana. We are so pleased that you have joined us. Your participation enriches our entire community. We hope that our show serves as a point of light, helping to deepen our understanding and experience of the Catholic faith in history. So join us as we seek through prayer, study, interviews, and discussion the roots of the practice of our faith. God bless.
Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. It's a wonderful sentiment and a wonderful message, but in the moment of grief, it can be hard to feel this. Blessed. It surely feels anything but that. Grief is a part of all of our lives. I don't think any single one of us has a trademark on the feeling of grief. We share it with the whole rest of humanity. All of us have experienced some form of significant loss, whether that be of a loved one, or a profession, or a heartbreaking when we look at the state of the world. There are many things that can cause us to feel a profound state of grief. And this grief has an effect on us. It can affect our minds. It certainly affects our bodies, and it can affect our spirit. It can drive a wedge between us and that which we need most, which is the love of others and the love of God. Grief can make us forget who we are, and grief can get in the way of our faith. But it's important to remember that even in the depths of our grief, even when we are angry with God, even if we reject God, even if we run as far as we possibly can from God's love, God is still there. God is still with us. Now, there are healthy ways to grieve and there are unhealthy ways to grieve, but we all have our own process. And it all has its own effect on our faith. Sometimes it can help us make our faith stronger. We learn to rely on God more. We learn to rely on the love of our friends, our family, all the more. Faith can also be destroyed by grief if we let it. So today's topic is a heavy one. So I hope you have a nice thing of tissues nearby. Katy McKinnon joins me today to talk about this extremely personal topic. Both of us have experienced profound grief in our lives, and we reacted to it very differently. But we came around to the same conclusion, which is that of love. The love of others, the love of God, and how much grief can help us learn to depend on those things more. So when Christ says, "Blessed are those who mourn," it is not the emotion itself that we are being blessed with, but the whole that is formed by that grief can then be filled up with love. It can be filled up with purpose. And in that way are we blessed. So, pull up a box of tissues as Katy and I go over how grief affected us, how it can mess and enhance at the same time our faith life, and kind of where you go afterwards. With me in the studio today is Katy McKinnon, our office business manager. Katy, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me back.
And you'll recognize her voice from when we did our preparation for Advent series last year.
And you still let me back.
That's right. That's right. You behaved yourself.
I behaved myself, so I was allowed to come back.
Well, today we're discussing a little bit of a hard topic, a little bit of a sad topic, because Katy, both you and I have had some pretty significant grief
Right.
in our life. And that's been something that has, deeply affected us going forward. So let's preface a little bit. What was your faith life like before Russ passed from this world?
I would say I was we'll call me a pretty good Catholic. I had a lot of, I grew up as they call us, a cradle Catholic. So I'd been going to church all my life, fell away from it a little bit during college, found my way back. Found St. Francis here in town. And, I think I had a pretty good faith life before losing Russ.
I was in college at the time, and my faith life at the time was much like you would expect a college person to be. I'd go out and have my fun on the weekend, go to confession, go to church, sometimes maybe a little bit of hangover, and then rinse and repeat. I mean, I wasn't too bad or anything like that, but I was certainly having a good time.
Well, you have one up on me. At least you went to confession after you went out on the weekends. That I can say probably didn't happen with me.
Well, let's say I most of the time went.
Okay.
I was decent at it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I came to the faith late. When I was 19, I fully converted, and it was an excellent time. It was a good time in my life for me to find the church and start getting the direction that church gave. And then my world came to a screeching halt. And I think you understand what that feels like as well.
As did mine. Life changed for me and my kids in a matter of an hour. Completely unexpected.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we're going to get into that. I think, life was rolling around pretty good. Russ and I were empty nesters probably about 6.5 months at the time. And our daughter had moved out. She was going on with her life. Our son had gone to college, and he had come back during the COVID years. They all got shipped back home, or, that sort of things. But he was still living outside the home. So we had plans for the future. We had, we were moving on. We were going to maybe do some traveling and those type of things that you do when you in your early 50s when the kids move away. We had a perfectly normal week that week. Thursday night, we went out with some really wonderful friends, had a great dinner. Friday was just about a boring old Friday in our lives. And we went to sleep that night and woke up an hour later, and Russ said, something's wrong. I need to get to some medical care. And I said, would you like to call the ambulance? He said, no, let's go. Took him to the emergency room, and when they wheeled him through the doors of the emergency room, that was, or the triage over there at St. Pat's, that was the last time I saw him. So, doctor came out probably about 45 minutes later, and that was it. We got that sort of where you see in all the Hollywood TV movies with the doctor and the nurse and probably a minister next to him, and they gave me that line you don't want to hear. We tried everything we could. And there was nothing leading up to it, nothing that, he had a heart incident, but it wasn't probably like a regular heart attack. He wasn't grabbing his arm, his chest, nothing hurt. He just couldn't get air. And from our lives changed, like I said, in less than an hour. I had him at the hospital at 10 after 11, and before midnight, he was gone. So it was surreal at that point. And I can tell you from learning through grief therapy that a lot of my brain shut down. I don't remember a lot from that night. I do remember the lucky part that I do work at a church and had people available to me, and then people just started appearing out of nowhere, and thank God for that. The support system was incredible. So that's kind of our story without going too far into anything. But that's how life unexpectedly changes, and I stood there thinking, I'm 51 years old and I'm a widow. And that's a tough one to run through your brain. What do I do? So I'm pretty sure I sat down and went into shock. So, and yourself?
Well, like I said, life was kind of continuing on as normal. My brother had a troubled high school time. He had leukemia when he was younger, and it was before the really effective treatments had come out. And so he went into an experimental thing where they were like, we'll pay for his treatment, but he's going to be on a cocktail of drugs that we're trying to figure out what works. Mm-hmm. And there were a bunch of kids that were on that. A lot of them didn't make it because those cocktails just weren't effective against it. And while the cocktail that he was on was effective at beating the cancer, it left his body scarred. He had the liver of a 55-year-old alcoholic. He had a spleen the size of a football, and so he wanted to be a normal kid. His entire childhood, all he wanted to do was go out and play football and talk to girls and all that. But he was limited, and the medications that he was on, they made him gassy.
Yeah.
they made his palms like clammy and that sort of thing, and so he was very self-conscious.
Sure.
And he had run into some legal trouble because some kids, if they're off, smoking weed, they try to be subtle about it. He decided to do it in one of the practice rooms.
Oh, okay.
In the band room there. And so he landed himself in trouble and continued just to be brazen about things, ran away at one point, violating his parole. I had to go to Great Falls and bring him back because we finally knew where he was. And he called me up and he said, let's go home. And so when we got there, the cops were waiting for us. And when they took him away, he gave me a look that broke my heart, because I knew I brought him back to that. And while there was nothing else I really could have done, that hurt. But he got into treatment, he got into counseling, and it seemed like he was making a comeback. He was going to church. And then it came out of nowhere. The pastor at the church that I was working at the Presbyterian church here across the bridge. And I get a knock on the door, and I'm like, is there something going on? Did I forget to set up a table or something? And he just says, your brother's gone. And I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him until I got to the house, and I had to go upstairs. I had to see him. And that was when my mind broke. And I raced over here after he was taken from the house. And Father Perry, thank God, was here. And I think he was off hours because he came to the door kind of like, we're not really open. But he saw me weeping openly, and he had me come inside. And you have to understand that he was a huge part of my world.
Sure.
From the time that he was young, I protected him. Right. I kept... East Missoula wasn't a great place. Mm-hmm. And there were a ton of kids that wanted to prey upon a weak kid. Mm-hmm. So being his defense was a huge part of my personality. And when he left of his own accord, I felt like I failed. That I was the one responsible. And I ran. I'm sure if I'd have turned to the people at the church, I would have been accepted and cared for like you.
Oh, sure.
But I felt ugly. And I ran. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm teared up. It's your turn.
You're teared up. You're teared up now. Here, I'm handing you a Kleenex.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because, as we've all learned, it's a personal journey. Mine's different than yours. Mine is different than my kids. Mine's different than a widow who has lost her husband to cancer, or, any type of thing. But I've learned that everybody has a personal journey. So, see, here comes the tears now. I was doing pretty good till I looked at you. Okay. But we knew this was going to be a little bit of a sad one. Yeah. So,
your world shattered.
My world was shattered. My kids' worlds were shattered. Russ was very well known in Missoula. And getting to be a part of that, we had built probably 31 years together, almost 28 married. So we had built an incredible life. No complaints there. So we had a good marriage, a couple rocky here and there, but doesn't everybody. But all in all, we raised two great kids. I'm blessed to have a son-in-law that's, equally as great now, who was a part of this, who had already experienced loss in his life, and now losing Russ too. And, it breaks your heart as a mom to watch your kids. And I think, yes,
my faith was shattered. And I went exactly where everybody else does. Why, God? But I had a revolving door at my house for, I know, a good solid week leading up to the funeral. And I'm blessed to have an amazing family and supportive family. And my brother, strangely enough, we had been through this once before because my oldest brother, had lost his wife at 43 to cancer. We had been through this with him. And one of the first things he said to me was, Katy, don't ask why. And I said, how can you not ask why?
Too late.
Too late. Already done it. But he said, no. He said, because you'll rip yourself to shreds asking why. And it's always stuck, And I find myself going there and I'm like, no, God had a higher purpose for him. He has a higher purpose for everybody. And I keep playing that Billy Joel song in my head, Only the Good Die Young. I grew up with Billy Joel. I had older siblings and, they constantly played Billy Joel. So plus we're New Yorkers. So, Billy Joel, he was a staple in our house. So at least with my older siblings. So I think I learned a lot from watching him, but I think I never put myself in the position that I was going to be, oh my God, my brother lost his wife at 43. Here I am at 51. And Russ was 53. So, and it just, it pretty much kind of shatters you. And then you start from scratch again. We were, how do I explain that to people? That we were one and now we're two, but we were a we for so long. I'm learning how to build me again. And I think a big part of that is learning where my faith has gone or where it had to start again. And we'll go into that story too. I bet.
Yeah, no, I get that. Were you mad?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've had several, and they talk about the stages of grief and all this stuff. And guess what? You start with one, you go to another one, you go to another one, and then whoop, you're way back again. You go through all kinds of patterns of grief. Some months it's angry, some months it's this. I think our daughter was getting married that year too. So Here we are. We lost Ross in January. Megan was getting married in July. So not only did she not have her dad to walk her down the aisle, but, but in a way, having that wedding to look forward to kept us all from probably dealing with a lot of heavy stuff right away. Sure. I mean, mine, losing him in the end of January, I don't think my grief hit until about October. When everything calmed down, everybody went home, then all of a sudden reality sets in. You're alone. But though my son actually came to my rescue and moved back home with me for, to stay with me and that sort of thing, which I was lucky to have because I can't imagine people that get left alone to 4 walls and an empty house. A couple dogs too, but they're pretty good for therapy. So I was pretty alone, but it didn't hit really until then. I think the numbness wore off. You get pretty numb pretty quick. Yep. There were times that, yes, I was so angry, but there were also times I couldn't even cry. I mean, to me, that was strange. Then I felt bad. Here comes the Catholic guilt. Why am I not crying for, a man that I've been married to this long? And why can't I conjure up the emotions? But I think that's grief. Like I mentioned before, and I have no problem mentioning that I went to, it took me a year or so before I attempted to go into therapy and grief therapy. And I was lucky to meet the most marvelous therapist in the world. And she explains to me that grief is kind of like standing with your back facing the ocean. And, sometimes the water trickles over your feet. And sometimes there's the wave that comes out of nowhere and knocks you on your rear end. And, oh God, is that true?
Yeah.
It could be a song. It could be and I could be driving in the car and hear some song that just takes me to tears in no time. But then again, I could have songs on that make me laugh hysterically or get happy, or from our time when we were dating and that sort of thing. He was a DJ in a bar in the old Elbow Room. Let's just say that. People in Missoula will know that one. But music was around us, and so I have to throw back to the 80s. You hear an 80s song and it'll just make me smile, which is great. I prefer to smile at this point and remember what we built together and how lucky I am. I mean, I consider myself extremely lucky for the life that he gave me and the 2 kids that he gave me. And I think God has his hands in all of this. He's trying to teach me to do something. And maybe this, sitting here with you today, is what my purpose is going forward. So, okay, now I'm talking too much, but no.
Well, there's no too much.
There's a lot to talk about with this, but we can get off on all kinds of topics. But I think and you were talking about finding faith. I think after my faith was completely shattered, it took, when was it? It was, I know it specifically because I didn't go to church after that. I think, I kind of stepped away. I needed a break because I didn't know at that point, okay, God, let's talk about this a few times. We went some rounds. Yes, we did. And I'm sure you did too. But I found my way back on the next Lenten season. I went to church. I thought, you know what? I've never done the Triduum all together, so I went to Holy Thursday and I went up there and washed feet and I had my feet washed. And then something hit me on Good Friday when that cross went by me in the aisle and up in front. And when I walked up to stand there and I looked and I went, okay, I get it. That was a pretty powerful moment for me. I bawled. I went back to my pew and just let loose. All of the water came flowing out. And I thought, okay, God, I get it. That was kind of my moment getting back to church. And slowly, I made my way back to church. And then, of course, I went away and worked somewhere else for a year and then came back to church. And church is a part of our lives. We're pretty lucky working here. I have a pretty good, I would say I have an excellent support system here. How lucky am I? And how lucky are you, too, to have these? We're surrounded by priests. We're surrounded by wonderful people who we can talk to and understand. And I think it gives me an advantage talking to those who come in and who lose people. I tend to be their first point of contact. And I don't think they know that about me too much, when they walk in and sitting across the table from me, and I'll wait until they're sitting across the desk from me, but I'll wait till the right moment to let them know I know exactly what they're going through. So, but then again, that personal journey thing is different. So, but it helps them open up, I think.
Oh, they recognize that you're a human being that gets it.
Mm-hmm. I do get it. Unfortunately, this is what I'm excelling at now in my second part of my Katy 2.0. But I think, like I said, I think God's pushing me to do something for people. And maybe that was what I was meant to do. Russ is working on a higher purpose now. And I'm here. I'm here doing the grunt work on earth. We'll call it that. But no, it's good work. I love it. I just think it's giving me more. It fills my heart a little bit where it's empty. There's always going to be an empty spot. Yeah, you feel that. And I think it fills it a little bit.
So when did your faith start to become strong again? When did you start to feel close to God?
It's probably been in the last year. It took a while. It's been, I can say, almost 4.5 years since losing him, which means that it felt like it happened yesterday. There's no time limit on grief. I think at this point, I'm starting to feel closer to him again. I see him in different ways. And there are times where, yes, I will miss church on a Sunday, but if I go and sit out and look at the mountains, get in the car, take a drive, I can find him. We have a lot of chats. And I think my grief journey it's not just Russ. Russ was in the middle of losing my mother in 2017. I lost Russ in 2021, and I lost my dad in 2022. So the 3 biggest people in my core of my life were gone. So in a matter of 5 years, that was unexpected. Not completely unexpected with my parents. Let me tell you, they lived a beautiful life, married almost 64 years. One lived to be 86, the other one 91 and a half. They lived amazing lives. But my father still being alive when Russ passed away, he had now lived through losing two, a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law, both young. Watching him go through that was hard too. But yeah, I think I'm finding my way back. It's a slow process, but I get reminded of it every day when I drive over Orange Street Bridge and get to see this beautiful church that we work in. And it kind of relaxes you because that trip over Orange Street Bridge was a trip that I didn't take for probably 3 months because that's where I came when I took Russ to the hospital. And I avoided it. Sure. I wasn't going down there again. Not to mention we work right next to the hospital that I lost him at. So all those things you kind of have to blank out in your life. Those are the kind of things that I wish my brain would have shut off. But no, they shut off different things. It'll come out sooner or later, I suppose, or it can just stay buried wherever your brain has a good way of burying it.
Well, in some ways, I think that it might be beneficial to be exposed. Yes. And to not develop aversions that then kind of go deep.
Right.
You've had to confront the realities of your loss. You've had to, kind of, I don't want to say sit in it, but dwell.
Right.
Might be a better way. And it sounds like you've had the right kind of people to help you deal with that dwelling and to, if not be okay with it, at least accept it.
Oh, sure. Sure. I can't tell you. I have a great support system, and you will find, it's surrounding yourself with the people that continue to, they're not necessarily the ones that are there, right? They're there immediately, but then they're the ones that they'll continue to give you a call. Hey, how you doing today? It doesn't even have to be talking about any of this. It's just checking on me. Yeah. That sort of thing. But a good support system is huge. And I'm thankful that I had it. And having a family that I do, and my kids are amazing. I've watched 2 kids go through, 3 really, with my son-in-law, but they're so resilient. And they had to deal with it in their own way. At first I was thinking, maybe they should have therapy, maybe they should, do that. But no, they were adult enough to say, no, Mom, we want to deal with it in our way. And they're better people for it. They've gone after their dreams in the last 2 years. They've changed their lives. They've done exactly what they wanted to because my son, I always remember this. He told me one time, and it's the funniest thing because we used to watch Shark Week. No kidding. Every year on the Discovery Channel, the kids, Russ, me, not religiously, but the kids and him would watch. And Ryan, out of nowhere, says to me, Mom, just remember what we learned on Shark Week. Sharks can only swim forward. Mm. I thought, well, that's deep from, where did that come from? And he goes, no,
some wisdom right
that's
there.
Some wisdom right there. Yep, sharks only swim forward. He goes, and we're sharks. So, and I said, wow, okay, that makes sense. And to me, I was like, I have to remember that. And I can't get that out of my head. I always think about that when I'm starting to feel sorry for myself or feel bad or anything like that. I'm like, no, I'm here. I'm still alive. I have to move forward. But with Russ in my heart, on my shoulder, always back here telling me things, he appears. Have no fear. There are those moments where you're like, you're here. All right. Where are you? Sort of thing. You probably feel that about your brother too.
I absolutely do. We shared so much that it was certain songs, like you said, would just devastate me.
Sure.
For years afterwards. And I'm so happy that you were able to have the support system that you did.
Yeah.
And that you were able to lean on them and have that. I didn't.
Yeah.
But that's not because it didn't exist.
Okay.
It's because, like I said, I was filled with such guilt because I blamed myself.
Right.
And so I ran from from everything that was familiar. I ran away from my family, and they were dealing with the blow as well, and I could have relied on them. I'm sure they would have been there for me, but I was certain at the time that they would blame me too, because I was his big brother. I was supposed to protect him, and I failed. I don't see it that way anymore.
No.
By the way. But I did for many years, and I was in shock for a week, thereabouts, like right after it happened, right after I felt my mind break. I didn't cry for a week while we were getting everything together for his memorial service. I knew something was wrong because of that, and then I demanded almost to give the eulogy. And everybody thought that it would turn into an absolute mess. But no, I delivered. And that church was so packed. There was standing room only. There were people standing outside the doors. He was so beloved. And there wasn't a dry eye in the place after I got done speaking, except for mine. And then that night, I started a wake that would last for the next 5 years. Right. I sought my own destruction in many ways. And I ran away from God. I ran away from my family, not because I didn't believe in God, but because I was sure that I was ugly in his eyes. I wasn't. But I still prayed. You know, I still had my faith. And so in the dark nights when I would be crying out in grief, I knew he was listening.
Right.
But it took a while for me to listen back. And to hear him saying, I love you. Come on back anytime you're ready. And so I slowly started to build myself back together. And I was attending church infrequently.
Right.
You know, I wasn't necessarily a creaster because I don't like crowds. And so I go randomly in the summer or randomly in the fall, somewhere around his, thank you. I'll have another one.
Pull up another one.
Around his death day or around his birthday, I would always find myself. But I wasn't a regular attendee until, probably about 4 years ago now, when I came back on a Lent, and I've been going every single Sunday since.
It's Lent.
It was
Lent.
Lent.
It brought you back. It brought me back.
It was Ash Wednesday that did it.
And just a reminder, Father Hightower always told me that you can be angry at God. He can handle it.
Again, I wasn't angry. I didn't blame God for what happened. I saw my brother's chain of choices. I respected him. Like, he was only 17 when he left, but he was making the decisions of a man. And so I've come to respect. I don't agree with it.
Right.
But it was his decision, not mine. I didn't have anything to do with it. But it took me a while to get there. And it took me a while to get into therapy. It took me a while to really be able to talk about it without being like, well, let's have another bottle to numb that pain. But you have to sit with it. Much like you did here, you surrounded yourself not with things that were painful to you, but things that were familiar.
Sure.
And you let yourself integrate back into your life. I feel like if I had done the same, my grief period would have been shorter. But because I ran so far, and again, I thought I was ugly. I thought nobody's going to want to talk to me. Nobody in my community, nobody in my family. God certainly must think I'm ugly. But there's that psalm that I always thought about, which was, even though I flee to the farthest shore, you're still there.
Yep.
You're still there.
He's
looking
still
after
all
me.
around us.
So let's talk. We've talked about the shattering at this point. Let's talk about recovery.
Recovery.
Where's God with you right now? How is faith helping sustain you?
Faith is definitely helping sustain me more. And I find more time to spend with it now that my kids, like I said, my kids are kind of doing their own thing now, which they should. They're adults. I can't expect everybody to always take care of Mom. My sister's been my protector since she's always has been. She's the oldest. I'm the youngest. My brothers, I've been so protected for so long that I'm finally starting to move out of that bubble. And I think God's helping me find that strength. I don't know how to say it, but I can feel it because I feel stronger. I'll get there. It's still a journey. This could last the rest of my life. Who knows? But
Uh-oh, there goes the Kleenex again. All right. We'll have everybody in tears on this one, but no, I think my faith, and like I said, I mean, working at church when you're right next to it all day long, you kind of, you're like, okay, maybe I should just explore this a little bit more. I'm starting to read a little bit more, and God knows I have listened to, now I feel like I'm on the other side of the podcast because I've listened to podcasts. I've read books on death, on people who have lost people young, people who have lost people unexpectedly, and there's some good stuff out there to listen to, and that helps. Some faith-based, some not faith-based, some that would make me laugh. I mean, at some point you gotta laugh again. Russ was a vibrant guy, and I mean, and we had a great bunch of friends. I got my family down at Red's Bar. He had the regular group down there, and God love them, their family. And that's this kind of support. I think you see God in all of that. I can't walk anywhere where someone doesn't wrap their arms around you and say, we got you. In a way, that's faith in God. That's God working through them a little bit, nudging me in the right direction. So I think that's where my faith kind of stands right now. And I'm finding, like I said, finding me again after being a wee for 31 years. Now there's a challenge, and I think I need God to help me through that. I think I need the support system to help me through that. And that I'm finding. I'll probably be a better Catholic on the other side. As they say, those that went through, RCIA, well, OCIA now, they tend to turn out to be better Catholics because they learn it, as an adult. And me growing up with, it was just, okay, we're going to church. It's every Sunday we're going to church. And as a little kid, you're kind of going, all right. But I think, yeah, the Katy 2.0, the me going forward is going to find God in a little bit different way. And it's kind of cool in a way, for lack of a better word. It's kind of cool. It's nice to feel.
Faith has been a huge part of my recovery too. I know that when I finally said yes to God again, when I allowed God to love me, because God never stopped loving me.
No.
But I finally started to be able to allow myself to feel that love. It filled me.
Sure.
And I'm renewed in my purpose. I'm renewed in my direction in life. I've been able to help a lot. Like looking back, I knew people. I could see the signs. You don't necessarily see it coming at the time, but after that traumatic experience, especially when there's a suicide, you can start to see it in other people. And I've been told since then that there are people who reconsidered and stayed in this world because I reached out to them and said, look, I can see this pain and there's something to be learned from it. So while I would love it if my brother was still in this world, what I learned from his death has allowed me to participate in the continuation of life of others.
Well said. Very well said. That's exactly what I feel like with Russ too. I feel like there's something amazing sitting across from the table from somebody and feeling like, okay, been in your shoes, I can help you. And you don't push it on anybody, but you can see it in people.
Right.
You can see the hurt in people. You know what they're going through at that point. And you know that they're probably numb. And 6 months from now, you hope they walk back through the door and go, can I still help you?
Right.
I think that's what you and I are put on this journey to do, to help them.
And I know when I lean on God, God gives me the strength.
Right.
To keep on walking. And, like I said, I dove straight into the bottom of a bottle afterwards. And I'm not an alcoholic, but I absolutely had a drinking problem. And when I stopped drinking because my health, my life was in danger because of it, I wasn't able to touch a drop until I dealt with the reason why I was drinking. And now I can have a beer.
Right.
And it's a beer, and I don't feel tempted to drown myself because the grief that I was trying to drown for so long, it's still there, but I've accepted it at this point. I'm not trying to run from it because I will never be able to run from it. The pain that we feel means that we loved them
Oh,
so
yes.
much.
Very much. And I think we have to feel that pain. And you were talking about not being able to cry. And I think mine, after that week, came out at his funeral, finally. About halfway through. I was staring at a casket, and it just came. And yes, that was, like I said, like your brother, Russ was very well known. And it was COVID time, so we couldn't actually have his funeral at St. Francis. We had his funeral over at the Sister Rita Mudd Center. Thankfully, the Loyola crew, the St. Francis crew, they all got together and planned this amazing funeral. And we had it in a gym, but that's okay. It's a blessed place. We can have funerals there. They have masses there. And I never turned, in fact, one of his friends that gave the eulogy, I think he actually asked during his eulogy, he said, "You should turn around and see this gym. It's full. As full as it could be during COVID rules,
Right.
but it was full." And I think I regret sometimes not turning around completely. I mean, I saw a crew on this side, so I've had to ask people. I'm like, was it full? Was it this? Was it that? You know, and it was. He was so well loved, and which meant that we were that loved. We were loved too, and it was just getting that strength from people. And people have told me now, "Oh, you're a really strong woman." I'll never believe it. I don't. I'm bad about it. People tell me, like, "You wouldn't believe how strong you are," and I'm like, okay, someday I'll believe it. But I think being able to do these things and move forward and help other people, that's where I'm getting the strength to move forward. So maybe that's when my faith is taking me.
I can look back and see the humor in it now, and I can see it. I look at it as my brother punking me one last time.
Sure.
My family has a tradition of, we are cremated, and there's a large mountain near where my grandparents' property was. And we used to spend summers up there in this fire watch place. And it was a wonderful place with wonderful memories. And so many of our loved ones have flown off of that peak after they've passed. I was the one to release my brother. But right at that moment, there was an updraft.
There was. I knew that was coming.
And my brother went up my nose.
That's nice. He's with you forever now.
And at the time, I was horrified, just
Yes.
horrified. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, he was punking me one last time.
He was punking you
Just-
one last time. See that? Yep. That would probably be. I was waiting for that one. I was like, that happens to so many people, though. I think when they take ashes somewhere to spread them. I mean, it was something. You know, like all of a sudden, here comes the wind. I think it is. I think it's them going. Let me throw one at you. Let's see how close you really want to be to me for the rest of your life. Going up your nose is probably pretty close. Yeah.
So you and I think, we're never going to lose that. It's not a ragged, raw hole anymore.
No.
But it's still there. Mm-hmm. And there are some people maybe listening to this show right now who have that wound and it's very fresh.
Right.
What would you say to them?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think don't ever give up hope that there is a brighter side to this. I know it seems ever so dark right now. And finding that light is like, as you said, you can run away and run away and run away from the darkness. And you're still going to be in the dark. But I think at some point you see a small light and you move. My voice just cracked there. You see a small light and you just slowly have to move towards it. And you find the beautiful things that this person gave to you. I have 2 beautiful children plus a bonus child. I have a life that I would never give back. And I think you have to look at those things in life and say, wow, okay, there's some beautiful stuff to this life still. And I have to, as I said before, I'm going to live life for the 2 of us. But it's me. And we are still one, you know, as we were before, But yes, two becomes one, but I'm going to live this life for the rest of my life for him too. And that'll be in grandchildren someday. And I mean, I see him all around, and I think people need to find that. And it's a journey, like I said, and some people give up really early. Like you said, you could walk away from it, but I think you have to find your way back with the right people, and you surround yourself with the right people. And it's it's a long journey, and I'm still on it.
Oh, me too.
But I'll still remember those waves. You know, the waves are a little lower. They're maybe hitting me at the knee level right now. And there are some days it just trickles over my ankles. Water therapy is great. Sitting by a lake, sitting by, I will find retreats, sitting by a creek, sitting by, oh my God, I actually said creek.
Welcome to Montana.
Welcome to Montana. And I think I've lived here long enough to where it finally got me. Okay, I think I grew up wondering, what is a creek? Isn't that thing in your neck? But no, up here it's a creek. But sitting by water, I can find there's a peace, and you got to find your inner peace. But don't give up. I think there is that light, and when you find it, you find a lot of joy in what you had with this person or what they were a part of for you. And I think that's a long answer to, to your question, but I think that's probably been my journey so far.
For my part, to anybody listening, what I've learned from what happened to me, or what I did to me, is if you are feeling the power of this grief, allow yourself to be loved. Allow your family and your friends to support you. Allow God to be there with you, because God never stops loving.
No.
God never stops caring. God never stops wanting to help us along our way. And so, I guess my short answer is just allow yourself to be loved, because in these moments, it's when we need it the most.
It is huge. It's amazing what a hug can do, or just knowing that people love you. And don't push it away. No, because people are there. They want to be there for you. A lot of people don't know how to show that to you, and they get nervous or they get scared, or, and I just reassure people that I love talking about Russ. He's a funny guy. There's some great stories. And
Matt too.
Yes, exactly. And that's to be shared. I mean, their life doesn't end. They're still up there, and they would probably be hysterical at you talking about some of the goofy things that they probably did. And yeah, I think allow yourself to be loved is really a good thing.
Well, Katy, the second that we hit the stop record button here, I'm going to give you a big ol' hug.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'll hug you right back, because I'm a hugger. People know that about me, though. So, well, I appreciate the time. And we made it through. We only went through, 3 or 4 Kleenex? We did pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being here and talking about this sensitive topic with me, and hopefully, our listeners can learn from it and maybe use it to help them process whatever pain they're dealing with too.
Yes, I agree. I thank you for the time. And maybe we'll come back and do a, Grief 2.0. Down the road, we could make this a whole, we don't want to make everybody too sad. This is the sad one, you guys. We'll work on the other ones next time, but let's just say it took you about, 6-8 months to get me to the microphone here to talk about this, but we made it.
We did.
Yes, we did. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. This is good therapy for me too.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we'll walk with God.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today as we walk as pilgrims this road together. If you feel called to learn more, please consider checking out St. Francis Xavier or your local Catholic church. All are welcome into our community, as God loves us all equally. If you are interested in supporting the Vox SFX podcast, please visit sfxmissoula.org/donate. Until next time, go forth in peace and be the light of Christ in someone's day.
By Jove, we've got it.